Hi everyone, it's Suzanne Kohlberg and I'm super excited to be joined today by Karen Phillips.
Hi Suzanne, how are you going?
I am great. Karen is a digital marketer, I'll get the word out, specialising in SEO, web design and SEO copywriting. Karen helps coaches, creatives and spirituals to get found online. After running a business in the office supplies industry for more than 20 years, Karen stumbled into the digital world 4 years ago, helping out a friend, and loved it. I love how businesses come from that. It's like, I'll just help somebody out and then the passion is born.
Yeah, it's amazing. Fine thread.
Welcome, Karen.
Thanks, Suzanne. Lovely to be here.
I'm really excited because Karen's helped me with all the things that we're going to talk about today. So this is even more gold. So I met Karen at a conference, a business conference a few years ago, and you were talking about Google My Business. And this piqued my interest because you were like, it's a free tool that so many people don't take advantage of. So I will not butcher it by trying to explain it. I'll hand it over to you, Karen. Tell us about Google My Business.
Oh, Google My Business is my favorite. It really is gold. So it's a free listing you can have on Google to advertise your business, to promote your products or your services. You can put posts up on your listing every week like you can on Facebook, but the posts actually stay there for a week before they're archived. So you only need to post once a week, which is pretty handy. And you can include a keyword-rich business description, and it really helps you get found online. So if, for instance, you're looking for, let's just say, a plumber in your local area, and you type in plumber into Google, then Google will show you what's called the local pack, which is 3 plumbers near you. And that is really where you want to get to with your Google My Business listing. So you can get so much more traffic to your website. You can get heaps of inquiries, and it really helps to grow your business. And it's free, so why wouldn't you take advantage of it?
And this is what I love. So I didn't realize this. I don't know if I'm just really internet dumb, but
No,
I remember when I was talking
that.
to you about this, and you were like, when you put something into Google, it automatically shows you the people that are closest to you. Once you said that to me, it made a whole lot of sense. But I suppose because for me, for my business, and a lot of people I imagine you work with, coaches, spirituals, we do work online. So the fact that people being closest to us doesn't necessarily come to the front of our mind. And the reason this is interesting is when we first started working together, I was actually living in Tasmania, and then I was transitioning up to Sydney where I am now. And you were like, well, let's wait till you're in Sydney, because in terms of Google, there's a lot more people. And then the people who are closer, like when you live near a capital city, there's so much more traction you can get from the Google My Business. Not saying it's not worth it if you don't live, near a city, but I was really fascinated by that.
Yeah, well, it's true. And it works really well for local businesses, but it works well for any business, because if you're in business where, you don't care about where your people come from necessarily, location wise, as long as they come. So, and why would you say no to local business? It's a captive market.
Exactly. And the other thing that Google My Business did that, I'm very hesitant to set things up on my own because I'm worried I might muck them up or whatever. But for people who can, you can talk them through this, or they can look at articles, opt-ins, things you have about doing this. But Google actually sends you something in the post. So can you just talk about this so people are aware?
Yeah, sure. So it's super easy to set up. All you have to do is go to Google and log in Google My Business and click through, and Google takes you through the process of setting that up. Now you do have to give them your address, because that's how they verify that you are in fact a business operating from those premises. But you don't have to include your address in your listing when it goes live on Google. So when you set up your listing, Google will send you out a verification postcard with a verification code on it. And once you receive that code through the mail, I know it seems really old-fashioned, but that's the way they do it. Once you receive that code through the mail, you just pop it in on your listing online, and boom, there you are. You're all ready to go.
I love that. And I just really wanted to bring that point home for people, because I know I'm hesitant to give out my address, as I'm sure many people are in this current day and age. And as you said, it's to verify that you are an actual business located where you say you are, because otherwise, as Karen talked about before, with the putting an address in and the SEO and people searching, I imagine people try and shortcut it by saying they live somewhere really populated,
Yeah.
So this is a way around that. And as Karen said also, it's to confirm, but that doesn't mean your listing needs to list your address if you don't want it to. It's just a Google confirm that you are actually who you say you are. So
yeah, so if you prefer not to have your address, some people like to put maybe their street name and suburb and not the number, or you can just indicate a service area. Yeah, and that's totally fine.
And I remember us having a big discussion about this, because this was something I was really hesitant about, having my address. But Karen's like, you're in business, and if you were owning an actual storefront that people would go to buy bricks or whatever. So, and there's ways that people can be found, but that's a whole conversation we could get into on another day. But it is something to be, you know, if you're very, very privacy conscious, like I was, like so much so, Karen did point out some things to me that, you know, if there was the stalkery type people, there are ways, which was equal parts reassuring and confronting.
And equal parts scary, I reckon.
So the Google My Business, I love how you say the listing, you know, stays up for a week, so you only need to post once per week. It stays at the top, unlike Facebook where the news feed goes down. And the other thing that I've noticed, because Karen set up all mine and runs mine for me, is once a month I get a email from Google with the performance, the stats. So I find that quite handy to review, so you can know which posts are going well and comparison to previous months. So
yeah, you can, and you can actually click onto the posts in your listing from your back end to see how many clicks they've had, how many views they've had. And in the insights section, Google will also let you know what words are causing your post to be shown, which is kind of handy.
Very clever and very helpful. Yes. So the next thing I wanted to chat about, because you also do websites, you do Google My Business, you do websites, and you recently relaunched my homepage. The rest is coming, but I need to figure out there. But what would you say are the foundational elements needed for a successful website?
Well, to me, there's 3 foundational elements, and the first thing, and they all work together. So, you know, obviously good design is really, really important, and it needs to be not just good in terms of how it looks and how stunning it is, but also in terms of functionality. So, so not cluttered, an easy path to lead your customer through to get to the action that you want them to take. A really good navigation bar with no more than about 5 elements, really. If there's any more than 5, they should really be in drop downs under each heading, if that makes sense. So like home, about, services, loads of drop downs, resources could be loads of drop downs, contact, and blog, of course, is really good. The second element is, of course, SEO. A website needs to be optimized for search engines so that you can be found online. That's really, really important. So it's about knowing where the keywords go in the different parts of your website. It's about having a well-structured website that's not too heavy with code or not too heavy with unnecessary plugins if you're using WordPress. And then the third element is copywriting. So yes, the design's great. You've got your SEO, but then you really need the words that are going to draw your clients in and let them know that, yes, you're the person for them. So that when they land on your website, they think, oh, I've come home.
I love it. I've come home. There's so many things I could pull out of that. But the biggest thing that stood out for me, once again, this might just be really obvious to everyone else, but not to me, is when you said the action that you want them to take. So I will put my hand up and admit embarrassingly that when I did my very first website, I had no clue about actions or things I wanted them to take. I just did a website because that's what you do. Like I had no SEO, I had no idea about design or copy or any of that sort of stuff. It was just, people say you have a website, so I have a website. I didn't even look at the analytics, you know. So there's been very many iterations of my website over the years. And when I recently moved my website to Karen, so she'd done my SEO and now we were upgrading my website, the very first question you asked me was, how did you word it? What's the purpose of this page? Because we started with my homepage or something like, what actions do I want people to take? And I remember giving you a blank look, and I'm like, what do you mean? You know? So, you know, talk a little bit about this, because like, obviously in hindsight, it's like, if you didn't know what you wanted people to do as a result of landing on the website, then how can you test whether it's actually delivering for you? But this was really new to me. And yeah, I'll admit I felt really dumb, but now it's like, oh, I'm feeling so savvy. So explain this, because I'm sure I'm not the only one who's like, I just put a website out there because that's what I'm told to do. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But it's important to have a really clear idea of what the website is for. What's the purpose of the site? What is it that you're wanting people to do when they arrive there, or what is it you're wanting people to get out of your site when they arrive there? So, for instance, if you're a coach selling a $3,000 package, you might think, well, I'd really love people to buy my $3,000 package, but is it likely that they're going to do that if they're finding you on Google because you've got the skills and the attributes that they're looking for in a coach? You do what they want, like it could be life coaching or mindset coaching, Suzanne, or something like that. But will they actually buy straight away? Probably not. What they're going to do is want to get to know you. So how can they get to know you? Well, perhaps you could have an opt-in. Perhaps they could sign up for your newsletter and get to know you that way.
Yeah, I love this. So like, and it's interesting you should say that, because I'm sure for some coaches, really well established, really big names or whatever, that's exactly what they want. They want people to buy their $3,000 package direct off their website. For me personally, I don't want anyone to buy my one-on-one package off my website, and you actually can't, because I want to speak first to make sure that we're a fit.
Yeah.
You know, my membership, sure, jump into that, like get to know me that bit better. It's a lower cost offering, it's no lock-in and all that sort of stuff. But like for me personally, I'm really introverted, I'm really shy, and I want to make sure that we have this relationship before we commit a large sum of your money and a large chunk of my time for, you know, for periods together. Whereas other coaches, you know, they have signature programs that cost more than that, and then people just buy in. So it's interesting about knowing your audience, knowing you, and knowing what you want it to do. And that was something I hadn't considered before. And as you said, you could have an opt-in, you could have a newsletter. So on my website, I have, you know, the newsletter now, or just into my membership, which is a lower cost offering.
Yeah.
And there's no lock-in contract currently, so people could try a month and go, oh, actually, it's not for me. Yeah, so I think this is a really valid point. And the other thing that you said great design, SEO, compelling copy. There was something in one of the points that you brought up that I wanted to ask about. It's gone over my head.
Maybe it will come back again.
Maybe it will come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, the action that I wanted them to take was a really big point. And the other thing I wanted to say, I suppose, if people are feeling quite overwhelmed, if they're new to websites, or it just like when you go and look at a really beautiful website, as you said, it feels like you're coming home. And then when you look at your own or you start your own, you're like, it feels like a shit show. No offense, but like it can seem a long way between this beautifully put together thing and starting out. So what would be some suggestions you have for people? Like, should they wait to do a grand unveiling till they have it all together, or should they just start with like one page and add on to it? How would you recommend people go about it?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the business. So these days you can get started in business without a website. You really can. So you just need a Facebook page, a Google My Business listing. You don't need a website for that. You can just have a listing. So I have a hairdresser that I go to. She's a friend, and she doesn't have a website, but she has a Google My Business listing. Now, I did a little experiment last October, and she was getting about 300 views a month on her listing, which is pretty good for a local hairdresser. But I did a little experiment and started putting posts up every week and photographs and all that kind of stuff. And excuse me, this last month, she's had 1,400 views on her listing. So, you know, that stuff kind of works.
I actually think that's a really excellent point for anybody. Like, for the website can seem really daunting. And also too, if you are new or you're just starting out and you spend a lot of time, you know, squirreling away on this website, I say this with love, who's going to look at it? If you've got really great SEO, if you've got somebody like Karen, also, if you've got the capital at the beginning to invest in it, great. But if you don't, it can be a lot of time for like this grand unveiling and then cricket. So maybe your mum and a couple of friends. Maybe that was just me and my first website. But like Karen's point,
my first website too.
about your Facebook page, you know, like to start with, gold, build your following. Google My Business doesn't need a website. And I think that's brilliant because you know, you can still be found on Google. You can still be searched out without needing all this sort of stuff. Because once you start the website too, there's things like hosting and domain names and all this sort of stuff. Like if you're really savvy and whatever, you can go and nut it all out. But it's not that I'm not savvy. I'm very time constrained with young children and stuff. So when I work in my business, I want to work in my business. So that's why I outsource to somebody like Karen. But if you don't have that and you want to do it all yourself, start out just with a Facebook page, start out just with a Google My Business listing. They're both free. You don't have any ongoing costs with those. And yeah, so I think that's a really, really good point. So
yeah, and you can also build a newsletter list without a website using, a free provider like MailChimp or MailerLite, I think is a pretty popular one at the moment.
yeah, that's brilliant. It's another thing I did too. And you don't need a lot of tech savvy skills to be able to send a basic newsletter. And, when you're starting out, you don't have a huge list or whatever. So, something Tash Corbin says, she's a business coach that I love, is your audience will never be as small as it is today. So
I know,
you
I
just
love
start
that
out.
too.
And so I started a Facebook page, and then I moved to MailChimp for a newsletter, and I sent that weekly, and continue. And then gradually over time, I added in Acuity, I added in paid Zoom, like even Zoom, which is what we're recording this on, has a free. There's so much things that you don't need to spend a lot of capital at the beginning, but then you can know where, and then speak to people who've done it before you, who are just a little bit ahead, not necessarily the big names, because a couple of times I've bought some big name courses. It's like, oh, I need this. And you go and have this platform that's like $100 US a month. At the beginning, that's a big chunk of change for a starting up business. So what I love that Karen teaches is lots of free tools and how to make the best use of those.
Yeah.
So Karen, if people are like, okay, cool, this Google My Business thing, I need to know more, how can they find out more from you about that?
Well, you could go to my website.
I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, there's a few things on there. And then I've also got an opt-in called How to Use Google My Business to Increase the Traffic to Your Website, which is full of useful hints and tips on how to do exactly that. Yeah. I'll give you the link for that one too, Sue.
Yep, I'll put the links. So I'll put the links to Karen's website, her Facebook page, and her opt-in. And what about if people are like, okay, I've kind of got the shit show happening like I had at the beginning, and I need like someone just to kind of look through it all and give me some clarity. What do you offer about that? Because I know that's where I started with you.
Yes, that's right, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I have a website health check and site audit. So that means that I go through your website with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what's working, what's not, and what could be improved. I run the site through some technical software that I've got, and that shows up any errors that there might be, any broken links or things that don't work. And I have a look at the copywriting as well, because often people don't proofread the stuff that they put on their website. And not that it affects your Google rankings at all, but from a user experience, it's kind of nice to have the word and rather than ampersands, and no spelling errors, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I totally highly recommend it. And what I loved about that, so when I bought that audit, is Karen goes through and says, like, highlights all the things, and then this is what you need to do. And then if you're kind of not tech savvy like me, and she will give like, do yourself, done with you, done for you, like, so different options from there. It's not just here's this and then buy my next thing. It's really useful. So it's for the tech savvy and also the non-tech savvy. So I highly recommend that. Awesome. So if there's like one tip that you want to
do the report. Oh,
pardon?
Sorry. I was just going to say that the session's on Zoom, that we go over the results of the audit, and it's recorded, so you can always refer back to it later.
Yes, there's that too. I really, really appreciate that, because I'm a visual kinesthetic. So if someone takes me through something and then I can go through it myself later, that's how I learn. Or if someone just kind of word vomits at me, I kind of nod along, and then later I'm like, now what do I do? Do you know what I mean? So that is really useful. So just before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask if there's like one tip or one takeaway that you'd like people to have. What would it be?
Just one? That's so hard, because there's
okay, maybe
so many.
maybe three. Just one. I don't follow instructions. No, go ahead.
Okay, well, the first thing is, if you don't have a Google My Business listing, get one. And if you do have one, post every week. It's really, really worth it. The second thing is, make sure your contact form on your website is working. So that's such an easy thing to check, and often we forget to do that for months on end, and things do break for no apparent reason. And then the third thing is, have a look in Google to see what your ideal clients are typing into search when they're looking for services like yours, and use those words in your own website.
Yes, definitely. That's something that you've mentioned to me a number of times, and I still struggle with, but it's very, very useful advice. Thank you so much for joining us today, Karen, and I'll put all the links and everything in the in the video description. And yeah, if anyone's got any questions at all, please just pop them in the comments, and if Karen doesn't see them, I'll tag her in it, and I'm sure she'll come back and happily answer any questions.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.